If Louise says so, we are doing it.
Good afternoon and welcome back to a Louise Dawson webinar. This afternoon, I am really excited to be bringing PAGS to you. PAGS is a profile and assessment program and platform that helps inclusion leaders and support for our students of determination in our schools. And they work across the world, so we're very thrilled to have them here addressing this with us this afternoon. So, as I said, Louise Dawson, you are very welcome to be joining us today. We love having you on here. We love sharing our messages, and we hope that you find it really useful. All of our webinars are recorded and hosted on our YouTube channel, so please do pop over there and subscribe so that you get notified of all upcoming webinars. But also, on at Louise Inclusion, we have over 300 videos already there. So we have webinars from many different partners and many different interesting viewpoints, which you can watch and join in and learn from. All of the YouTube channel is completely free of charge, so that will help you signpost it out to your learning support assistants, your teachers. Anything of any interest is there for you to help our students. This afternoon, I am joined by Feliciea Jibson, who is the CEO of PAGS, and Josianne Pisani, who is working on her team, helping to support training and implementation in schools. And these are two very key people that can help you. Now, inclusion, we know that the UAE are always taking great big strides through their policy and framework to help us meet the needs of our children and have as many children in education as we can, as per the United Nations Convention of People of Determination, so that we can get them in education, because it is a human right to have access to education. So this really does help us. And we also know that the government is very keen on us using EdTech, educational technology tools, to help support our processes. Now, we know that many things we have to do are time consuming, and EdTech can really, really speed up. And I think that's the beauty of PAGS. It's had some new upgrades. It's got lots of new parts to the software, including an AI integration, which everything is AI at the moment. It can sound a little bit boring, but actually some of this ability to help teachers to plan, putting the inclusion of students back in the classroom and with the responsibility of teachers, really, really key upgrades there. Now, the platform is for document provision. It helps us to not only with the support and the IEP process, but actually with that identification. It's not a diagnostic tool, but it does have many, many different parts of the software which can help you to understand what do children need. It helps to simplify the processes, but then it documents the processes all of the way through. So a really strong platform that can integrate into other existing platforms that you have in school to make the process more seamless. So we are going to dive right in by going over to Feliciea, and I'm asking Feliciea to describe the platform for us. I hope you enjoy. Do drop any questions that you have into the chat box. Talk to me about any challenges that you are facing, apart from the current changes we are going through this week. But there is an opportunity for you to ask questions at the end. So pop a question in. If it's something that I can weave into the webinar, we will. If not, we'll address the questions at the end. So do pop questions into the chat. That would be amazing. So I'm very, very pleased this afternoon to welcome Feliciea and Josie from PAGS. So Feliciea, for schools that are new to PAGS, a very quick overview. How would you describe the platform? How can it help schools before we get into the nitty-gritty and the depth of it? 5 seconds over umbrella. What is PAGS, Feliciea?
PAGS is, this is a very good question, stands for Profile Assessment and Goal Setting. So it's all-in-one platform that supports every stage of SEN management, from assessment to planning, monitoring, and reporting. Very importantly is that aligns with the UAE framework by helping school to demonstrate both compliance and progress for students of determination. It enabled that collaboration between everyone involved in the educational journey of the child, and is also built to reduce administrative burden, so schools save time while improving quality and consistency. So we can do more with less.
That's amazing. Thanks so much. That's a great synopsis of a very complex platform of support for people, which I know we're going to share the platform in a moment, and we're going to go into a lot of depth with that. So, good afternoon, Josie.
Hi, good afternoon, Louise.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good, good. So quick question for you. You work with a lot of schools in the UAE. From your experience, what are some of the biggest challenges that schools face when managing inclusion and those students of determination at the moment?
I think there are kind of challenges vary, but first of all, I want to say that schools are schools in the UAE are very committed to students of determination. There's no doubt about that. But I think one of the main concerns that they have is whether they can meet the needs of all their learners with the staffing and resources that they have. Um, then, if we look at the inclusion teams, it's about the amount of work that they have to cope with. Yeah, identifying needs, coordinating support, meeting with parents, writing reports, um, while at the same time also supporting the teachers. The teachers themselves, they really want to do the right thing, but what many of them tell us is that they don't always feel confident, when turning those goals set by the school for the learners into practical tasks and differentiated activities that they can use in their lessons for their subjects. So, for example, things related to developmental skills, such as improving communication skills or perhaps emotional regulation. Having the students use those taught strategies within a lesson, when they're getting upset, for example, rather than have them leave the lesson. So, yeah, that can be quite difficult. And I think another big one is consistency. Yeah, ensuring that there is the same high quality of practice across all classrooms, across all subjects, across all teachers, because this can be very time consuming. Yeah, it involves clear planning, it involves communication, it involves putting a lot of things together. So having all this happening within any, given school days can be quite difficult. And also, on top of that, Louise, schools are not just being asked to support students of the determination. They need to show the effectiveness of that support. So schools would need to, collect evidence. They would need to track progress, review the strategies and plans they have in place. And so, yeah, this can all be very time consuming. And, especially when we think that a lot of this still lives in spreadsheets and paper files. Yeah. And so seeing that holistic view of the learner's needs, and patterns happening throughout the education journey of the learner, and pulling that information into reports, easily and quickly can be quite difficult.
I think we see that a lot with all the information staying in different spreadsheets with different systems, different people's computers. And I think one of the challenges we have is when a leader might leave this company, then sometimes those documents are then mislaid or on platforms people don't have access to, or exist in a folder structure, which everyone gets really confused about. So it is a very complex challenge.
Absolutely. Consistency. How do we, keep the same high level of Zen practice, inclusive practice, within every classroom, every subject, every teacher? This usually relies a lot on careful planning, yeah, on communication, on easy access to information. And, when you have all this happen, how do we get all this to happen within a given school day? when, educators have so much to do within their agenda. And I think on top of that, kind of, is the fact that schools are not just asked to support students of determination, but they also need to show the impact of that support, how effective that support that they've put in place is. Um, and so they need to collect evidence. Yeah, they need to track progress. They need to review the intervention they have in place from time to time. And, doing all this effectively can be quite time consuming. Yeah, especially when most of this information still lies in spreadsheets, still lies in paper files. Yeah, so seeing, getting a holistic view of the learners and what is happening in their educational journey can be quite difficult, as, would be kind of pulling the information they need into the reports.
And I think that's why you've developed PAGS in the way that you have in order to directly address all of those points. Um,
Absolutely.
You mentioned that inclusion teams are stretched and they spend an awful lot of time turning assessments into plans and to strategies. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask Felicia to bring up on screen the actual platform, and so that she can take us through and look at the actual platform and how PAGS is helping us to move forwards with that. So Felicia, if you would like to take over sharing, thank you very much.
I think I'm sharing now, no,
You are
Louise?
indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
For,
yeah,
yeah.
how are you using PAGS to make things easier?
Um, so PAGS has been developed for the all to address all these pain points that we just mentioned, you mentioned, and Josie mentioned. I'm starting from our website, then logging in. So what is really important that we can start with identifying the barriers to learning for the child by taking an assessment, and then we generate targets in the hierarchical order. And from there, we can have developmental targets, or we can add our own pastoral or academic targets that could be aligned with curriculum. We work alongside any curriculum, British, Indian, American, French. So this is really important for educators because they will have a complete plan. So we have, after this, possibility of tracking and monitoring all this data, as we said, saving a lot of time and not having a lot of spreadsheet all over the place. Although we are very organized educator, I was myself planning 3 lessons in the same lesson. And then being able to generate these reports with rich data that we continuously manufacture as educators to be able to bring this up, and to be able to have this information at our fingertips. Yeah, from you, Louise.
Sorry, yeah, no, I forgot to unmute myself. I'm just talking to myself here. It's probably the best way. You also talked about how hard it is to keep everybody aligned. What does that look like in PAGS? How does it help everybody around the learner, the whole team? So the parents, the teachers, the leaders, the SEND team, the leadership team. How does it help everybody to stay in the loop with learners?
So PAGS enables this collaborative approach in between the educators, in between educational psychologists, in between parents, in between class teachers. We have a unique function of enabling this collaboration between professionals and aligning them alongside the same assessment. So if you choose to take the assessments from PAGS, which we always guide you, will be the identified barriers to learning, why the child cannot achieve what they're supposed to achieve. And from there, enabling them to contribute to the assessment, and the assessment is allowing us to make notes and to take it from there. And by taking the assessment, we could immediately go into selecting a target. We know as educator how difficult it is sometimes to align those targets with the developmental level of the child. Having said that, and what I'm showing is a fictitious child. But when we done the assessment was with the child in mind. So what PAGS is really good, after we align all these educators and everybody's input, is we're able to bring those results and have the interpretation of them. So we are not a diagnostic tool. However, we identify, as I mentioned, the barriers to learning. So why the child cannot achieve what they're supposed to achieve. And often we are targeting, when we go directly to target those areas that will help the child to access the curriculum. We step one step forward for us is that we introduce a summary advice, and this summary advice will be generated based on those questionnaires and will deliver strategies and intervention and recommendation, which is, we know how much time we consume on interpreting this data. Having said that, and I mentioned that we have the possibility of adding custom targets. If the school has already a bank of targets, this can be imported. Custom targets, like for instance, improving the attendance, that can be suggested, set as a SMART target, and also has strategies and intervention that we can do either at home or at school. And from the academic targets, in such case, we can add the academic targets that reflect, again, having strategies and intervention that will help us to achieve this target. Having done all this, really important is that when we go to the areas and we have logged any update in here, it's going to brilliantly show us on one way. Show us the notes that we have made of this child. So those notes will be the log updates that we usually make, and then they will show us in percentages how the child has moved from rarely to often to, and how is he doing, and those what kind of support I need to put in place, and how do I evaluate the intervention? Have they worked? Have not they worked? And how do I then adjust this? Once those notes can be anything related to the child, or can be a parent meeting, or can be a teachers meeting, or can be a multidisciplinary meeting. So those notes are very valuable in terms of bringing all the information together. So if I want to look at developmental targets, and also I want to have a peek of a history here to see how this will look like, we introduce AI again. And then the AI is going to be able to summarize all those notes and make a report. Imagine that we had that when we were teaching, and I was really looking forward, and I said, can we have a way where then we write the reports a little bit easier? Obviously, you have the possibility of editing this manually, and then add them into the reports. Very importantly, and we came across to schools in the UAE that they work with objectives. So those longer term objectives can be also split with the developmental targets. And once we've done that, we can upload everything into the documents area, meaning like a mini library, everything that we have worked on the child, as well as those notes. And I think later on I will have the chance to go into the reports, how all is generated into the reports.
So, one of the things that always strikes me is that teachers are not always they're motivated to help the children, but they don't always know how. They don't feel confident in coming up with different strategies, different ways of helping the children. So, whilst this platform is really key and can be used very successfully to help leaders of inclusion and Senkos to manage all of the data around a child, how are we helping teachers? So how are you using the technology to support the teachers with practical classroom ideas that are linked to the learner goals?
Well, I'm just typing as let's say, for instance, that we teach, that's what you said is the pain of every teacher. So how do I accommodate, and how do I make this translated into practice? And let's say that we teach English. I'm just picking up a subject. I usually pick up the science, but Today I pick up English compound sentences. And what we have done in here, and this is really revolutionary when we think about it, if we are able to identify the barriers to learning and we identify in a way that is important to us and is important to the child, is then we have the possibility of adapting those targets into our lesson. Takes a little bit longer to upload. But what is then what AI is going to do will be stripping off all the information that is related to the child. So that means we are not delivering any personalized information in there. And then we'll pick up as an age range, age appropriate and respectful. What can I do with that child in my lesson? In such case, well, we have identified, and you can see that it's coming with some not only tasks relevant to the lesson, but also guide us how to assess this and what will be the next steps. So the grading, sometimes the answer is important and is picking up I think more than 2 targets in here. Yeah, there you go. So if Hermione in this case is struggling to predict what will happen next, to address this in lesson when I teach English is I introduce the concepts, show how 2 independent clauses can join together. Then I can have her to identify and predict what might happen in a story that includes compound sentences. So just doesn't show there, doesn't sit there in an area that will have nothing to do with her barriers to learning. And then after that will be, how do I check if she actually understood this? And will be the guidance of how to do this progress tracking with always, often, and never. So we have now a possibility of making this really, really a reality. So the inclusion team drafting all those IEPs and then liaising or delivering them to the class teacher, and how class teacher are able to implement this into the lesson. Now, is that possible? We work with this PAGS AI at the individual level as well as at the group level. So we have a functionality in here that will enable us to group students in the classroom, and they can belong more than one group, try exactly the same to use the PAGS AI to get this information for the lesson that I'm teaching, and also bringing all this information at the group level, class level, school level, with all the toggles that we can choose and show how the learner is doing with the developmental targets, with the custom targets, with the notes. These are basically the dashboard that are used by the leadership team to be able to see at a glance how the head of inclusion, provision, or attendance, how is going on in there. So, having said that, I think there is one more thing that I wanted to show, but it's just we have released a really important piece of work which enable the educators to produce results, to produce, sorry, custom reports, which is results to me. So we have now a fantastic opportunity of building different reports. I know the schools are always wanted to produce beautiful reports, to have a template. I've been myself a teacher, I designed many templates. So how does it look like? So this is called Report Builder. We're really excited about this feature. Why? Because you can personalize it, you can bring your logo, you can bring your header, the footer, you can select the school year, and then you have the possibility of making this as personalized as you wish for your school, which means that and this process we save lots of time, because and this way we can edit the title, we can edit the form, we can add anything, we can create on the same template, we can choose what is important to us and what we want to say. Once we run this at the school level and we save it, then we can run it for multiple students, which is brilliant, saving time and delivering this in the inbox of each child. So if I go to Hermione's, you can see that I'm a fan of Harry Potter. I also have Bart Simpson as well. And I open this report, which I created. After you create the report, you can also share it with the associated schools if you work in a group, or with a PAGS community. So I have a quick preview. I hope that you see my screen. Can you see the report? Yeah. So this.
Felicia, no, we can't see the preview. We can just see the dashboard where you create the reports,
Yeah.
the report builder.
Just a second. I'm gonna change the screen. Here we go. So that's how the report will look like at a glance, with the review targets, with the academic targets, with the learner comment, parent comment, and then I remember, Louise, when you were telling us, making something simple, achievable, at a glance. Can I see it? Can I use it right away, and go with it? So that's what PAGS is producing now, and I'm hoping that in this way we can save a lot of time to educators and enabling them to do this at the school level, or at the individual level, however way they wish to do.
And if I may add something to what Felicia has been saying, I think for me the most exciting part about these new features that we've created in PAGS is that before kind of it was difficult for educators to interpret the results from the assessments into day-to-day language kind of, so that they could also share the information with the parents. And now PAGS enables them to literally at the touch of a button, and they change those results, that matrix results, into easy information that can be understood and followed by everyone. You don't have to be kind of a sense specialist. So sharing information and helping parents understand what is behind the learner's needs is really easy now. And the other is for the educators, whereas in the past educators kind of, or even now, educators still kind of differentiate by age level work rather than anything else, yeah? But that puts learners at a greater disadvantage because it widens the gap between them and their peers. And now with our system, with the PAC system, where they can actually generate tasks that they can include in any lesson that meets the learner's needs, they'll be able to kind of differentiate rather than by age, differentiate by the way they do things, not by the content they pass on to the learners, which will make a huge difference to the learner, in the long run. And then last of not least, of course, those reports, whereas in the past, those part of the inclusion team, would spend hours on end collating IEPs, for example. Now this work is done, on the go, kind of. So as they go along, they input the information, and then when they need those IEPs, literally just click a button, and that IEP is generated, which I think is great that we can, save all this time, and enabling us to use it where it matters most, supporting the learner.
Louise, if I may add in here, because I work myself in schools, and I've been the head of the school, and I know how important it is to keep an eye on the budget and where the budget is going, and how this can be deployed to many teachers, to many students. We really are looking at connecting ourselves with management information system, which we already do this. Via the API, we can import students in bulk, strategies in bulk, schools target in bulk, bringing up this data into PAGS a lot faster than any other systems. And obviously, when we have a system that is, we have a third party want, they can connect that to the school again to reduce that admin task of setting and getting and onboarding into PAGS. We also created ourselves a brilliant academy. So our head of product has worked endlessly in here to add mini videos of how to get into there. So not only that we nailed out how onboarding will look like, so that means you'll never be alone. Working with us is working as a team, and our aim is as globally to form a community. So again, the school targets, if you want to share them with the community, you can share them with the community. That will be globally. They will not be modified by other people, but they can inspire from what you're teaching, and you can filter them as well. If, for instance, I teach only English in here and I want only term one, that can be filtered like this, or the subcategory will be set from there. So we now work in the UAE with a larger group of schools. So they see this saving a lot of time by sharing the expertise in between them. Having like 15, 16 schools in a group makes such a difference, because then you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. So you can have a look of what the other schools are doing, how can I improve my standards, and where I do the self-evaluation for the schools, and where do I have to tap in and what resources I have to develop with our team. So we work. This global community is our basically dream and mission, and I know that you're embracing the same thing. How can we bring people together to work? And that's how we think that this is a solution for inclusion, not to be just a name in there, to become reality. And become reality, meaning that we have to enable collaboration, and we have to be able to facilitate this collaboration in between the school, home, practitioners, and community. PAGS can do that today, can actually help you and empower you to do all these processes.
Do parents, so I'm off the cuff question here, do parents have access to any parts of the platform?
Yes, the parents can be given access to this to the platform. We are very excited to get a new feature that will be coming, the parental portal, where they can access only some data. We are working on developing some sort of permission. We already have administrative rights and what the parent will able to see. So yes, the parents can be given to access to see where the child is, and where we can tap to work on this together.
I think one of the things that I really like is that traditionally heads of inclusion or Senkos or inclusion teachers, we might set two or three goals that the child might need to work on outside of the classroom. But one of the things that this does is it brings it into the classroom, puts it back on being the teacher's responsibility, and being able to do that subject wise means that actually you can have, especially when you get to secondary, your English teacher, your maths teacher, your history, geography, all of them, because the curriculum is also in there, and that AI ability to differentiate the lessons. So it's helping teachers to plan and modify and make sure the universal design is there, as well as looking at an individual child, but being able to implement strategy. That whole phrase, which is very key at the moment, absolutely necessary for some of our children, but very useful for all of our children. And some of those strategies are deliverable across a whole class. But this then makes the IEP the responsibility of everybody, not just the head of inclusion, which makes it a bit more impactful, a much nicer, wider journey for the children, not just small and located. Okay, is there anything else you'd like to show us before I move on to my final
Um,
question?
Louise, just to add to what you say, I think it's a really important point, because if we talk about inclusion, inclusion is about making the learners feel they belong, yeah, in the classroom. It's about enabling them to be able to access that curriculum, yeah. And so with these features and PAGs, that is exactly what our aim with all of these features was, yeah, to have the students, you know, making the students part of the classroom, within our lessons as well. Not just because most of the time we would kind of pull the learners out of the lesson to do, I don't know, a special lesson, with a
Yeah,
center or with a
a
specialized
specialist
teacher.
intervention, which can't be done in a mainstream classroom with all the other children. Yeah.
Yeah, but now the schools have the possibility that they bring those strategies they're using for that specialist intervention into the classroom so that the learners are not missing out on any particular lessons, because when all of this is happening, the learners are still missing out on other lessons that are taking place, yeah? So there are then gaps being widened in other areas, and in this way it all stays within the classroom.
Amazing. So amazing. Okay, so um we have whittled through it quite quickly, which many people will be very happy about because they've got a lot of work to do. So I'm going to go with my final question. But if anybody else has a question that they would like to ask, please do drop it into the chat and then I can bring you in after my final question. If there's one message, Felicia, that you would like schools to take away from today's session, what do you think it would be? And then Felicia, once you finish, I'm going to hand that over to Josie for the same question. If there was one message, what would that be from today's session?
Well, thank you so much, Louise, for making this possible. If it's one message, I have many, but if it's one message, it's that inclusion doesn't have to mean extra workloads. And with the right systems, it can mean smarter collaboration, better evidence, and stronger outcomes for every school and for every student. That's what
Awesome.
inclusion is about.
Yeah. Streamlining collaboration, but in I think it's that strategic support that's evidence-based and meaningful and purposeful. Josie, how would you
Yeah,
summarize?
in fact, that's exactly what I was going to say. I want schools to remember that inclusion is a team effort, yeah, and it works best when everyone has, the information and support. Because most of the time we focus on learner support, but teachers also need support. Inclusion teams also need support. So it's best, works best when everyone has that support that they need. And I just want them to remember that kind of the right system doesn't replace the people working in inclusion, but it frees them up to kind of focus on those who need their help the most. Yeah. So
Yeah, 100%,
inclusion.
100% agree with you. And if we have less paperwork, it gives us more time in the classroom connecting with the children and then able to support the teachers better. It's just a holistic cycle, isn't it? It's a big challenge. Okay, so I'm going to take back control of the screen, Felicia. If I can find my mouse, where's my mouse gone? There it is.
Yeah.
Oh, crikey, technology today.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to finish up with thank you very much. We've seen through the platform and you have given us the last message from today's session. So if anybody has got any questions, do feel free to put them in the chat. We don't have anything at the moment. And so whilst I just wind up the conversation. So, like I said at the beginning, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is at Louise Inclusion. If you'd like the link directly, do drop me a WhatsApp. The number is at the top of the screen. We can add you to any of our network groups. We can add you to any of our sessions. We have an English and an EAL network group this Friday. So lots of things coming up. Any of our events are logged, and some of our that aren't our events, other people's events are all on our website, louisedawson.com/events. And that's rolling and things are added every day. So drop a note into your diary, check it on a Friday so you know what's coming up in the week. If not, join us on Instagram and LinkedIn because we also advertise everything we do there. Now, this week we have a really crazy week coming up. We have guests for the next 3 days. But today we have Everway and Widget are doing the Literacy for All seminar today and tomorrow. So do feel free to join in with that. Komodo is a wellbeing program and they have got the validation toolkit going on tomorrow at Junecrest Academy. Now that is a hands-on workshop. So if you are a leader of wellbeing, then please feel free to join that. Guests 11, 12 and 13th. At 12:10, I'm on stage talking about EdTech with Berna Bauer from GEMS Education and Philippa Rathmill from EdRuption. So if you're at guests, pop along and see us then. And I will be on the Read Speaker stand after that. On the 12th, we've got the guest consultancy. They're hosting an event at McGettigans. More information on the website. On Friday, like I said, we have the EAL and the English network meetings here at the centre, but we also have, I think we have about 12 partners coming. Flash Academy, we've got Nessie, we've got so many coming on Friday. So again, if you'd like information on that, please let me know and I can tell you lots of free conversation, free coffee, free cake. And we also have the Flash Academy hosting a whole conference here on Friday. So we have 4 events simultaneously occurring on Friday. So there is something for everyone to join in with. Please connect with us, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, Louise Inclusion. Subscribe to my YouTube. I'm on a mission to get to my 1,000. So please subscribe. I would like to thank once again Feliciea and Josie for joining us this afternoon. Thank you very much for giving your time to the UAE and lending your expertise to help our jobs be a little bit easier. If you two could just stay online for me, that would be amazing. Otherwise, if there's no questions, we will call a close to it now. Thank you very much for joining us. Take care, and we will speak to you all again very shortly. Thank you.